please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So welcome to Lewiston, the second largest city in Maine, but the city with the biggest heart, and we are here for a budget work session.
And Heather's going to start off by walking you through the handout that she's placed at your desk.
So good evening, Madam Mayor and councilors. The top of the worksheet that you have kind of is a snapshot of what we started the budget process with. So we have the FY19 tax rate at the 2867. We have the FY20's initial tax rate that was in the city administrator's budget of 2952. And then at the last workshop session, there were decisions made to reduce the school budget down to a 10% increase, which is just under 1%.
10 cents, right?
I'm sorry, what did I say? 10%?
10%?
It's a carryover from last Thursday. So the school portion of the tax rate increase goes from $10.68 to $10.78. As a reminder, the county has a 4-cent increase, or 2.75, going from $1.42 to $1.46. So that red line, if you will, is held constant with all the information below there. So now we move on to the first set of round one adjustments. And that, just as a footnote there, that removes the planner and the deputy fire chief. And I realize down below there I said assistant fire chief. Just ignore the title, it's the deputy fire chief in both spots. They have total adjustments at that time of, and that includes both revenue adjustments and expenditure adjustments. We have total budget adjustments of $429,938. So that brings the city's portion of the tax rate down to $17.16, the overall tax rate to $29.40, or a 73-cent increase. Now, you will notice some numbers are in black and some numbers are in blue. The numbers are in blue are assuming we get the additional revenue sharing, the $725,000. So you can see them as you go in tandem under both scenarios. So this next round looks at all of the additional adjustments that were proposed and takes that with the round one adjustment. So we now come to $487,228. That again excludes the planning position and the deputy fire chief. It does not include any new positions whatsoever in that number that are non-personnel adjustments up to that point.
And just to clarify, because Mike, I think you were looking at this earlier, that second 487, the 487,228, that includes the 429 above it. So the only
Correct.
additional adds there was the difference between those two numbers.
Additional reduction.
Right.
So that's the
Reduction.
cumulative total.
I think some of my confusion were the blue numbers, and it just got answered.
Okay.
Because I was confused with the 130, 1.3%, 1.2, 1.19. I didn't realize it had to do with the additional revenue from the state.
Yep.
Can
So,
can I interrupt you, Heather? So I know you said that, so the 34 cents that's in blue, you said that has none of the positions below included?
that's correct.
So it's not just without the planner and the deputy fire chief, it's without everything?
It's without everything.
Okay.
So
And-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does it include the county and the school? Or is 34 just the city?
No, that's all in.
All
Okay.
in.
That's all in.
Thank you.
So just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page, the 487,000 is an accumulative total excluding the planning position and the deputy fire chief. It does not include any additional personnel, regardless of start times or anything like that. It is where we are at that point in time non-personnel adjustments. So at that point, the tax rate, excluding their additional revenue sharing, would be 29.37. With the additional revenue sharing, we drop down to 29.01, and that's in the blue there.
I know you explained it, Ed tried to explain it, but the difference between the 429,988 and the 487,228. I know you said round one adjustments, round two adjustments.
Yes, we did.
Those were things that we,
Those were the line item adjustments that were summarized on this handout last time.
and this council voted basically to move forward with them.
My understanding after leaving Tuesday night was all adjustments were okay, with the exception of the personnel.
And that's what we're going to decide tonight,
The personnel,
yes.
correct.
And then you did give us both with or without revenue sharing.
Correct,
And that's with the reduction in school, as we suggested?
correct.
Okay. I think I'm up to speed. Thank you.
So, again, the way that I understood leaving Tuesday night, it was all non-personnel was okay. The fund balance component was okay. So at this point, the council needs to decide, or what we were talking about, is bringing all the positions back and revoting on them and seeing how they impact, or what combination will impact the budget and the tax rate.
Great.
So, Madam Mayor, I guess the first question I would pose is, do we want to go position by position and vote on whether to put that position back into the budget? And at what vote number do I include that?
So before we get into that, I want to ask the council if there's anything that we want to bring up before we get into the straw poll.
Okay.
Sure.
Counselor Lyson.
Thank you. I know I've made a case for the planner position, but I wanted to kind of, was thinking about it for a long while. And one of the things that, you know, obviously working as the planning director for 15 years here and with the staff, what you can do in-house and what you can't do in-house. And I think part of the city's position recently has been hiring consultants to do a lot of the planning work. And that's expensive. And I do think we also, when we have it in-house, we have a little bit more control over the process. We have a little bit more control over the cost. So I look at it as an investment, not just a position. And that, to me, when we're trying to convince taxpayers why to pay more money, well, if you get more out of it and more homegrown work out of it, I think that's a benefit to the community. And so, again, net benefit from investment of that position, to me, is going to pay much more than what we're costing. And if we don't fund this position, I think it's going to cost us in other ways if we want to implement both the comprehensive plan and many of the initiatives that this council said, this is our vision, this is our plan, this is what we want to accomplish. And I think the planner can help move those things along a lot more than some of the other positions. And again, I want to be respectful to all of the department heads who have put forward positions. I know we're in a lean time, but again, I have to see them call them as I see them, and this is one of those. And I appreciate support on some of the other initiatives like rental registration, which has been so important. And I think that the council understands that. I think the planner position is along that same line. So thank you, and I appreciate your consideration.
Counselor Marcotte.
I have 3 items. First one, going back to those blue numbers, I think part of my confusion was I was thinking that there were adjustments between the second blue line and the last one at the bottom, and it was because there must be a rounding issue between the
I
120
think
and
that's
190.
just a rounding issue.
Yes.
I just realized that all the other numbers were the same, and I thought that the bottom line was representing some changes, but they weren't. Well, that was my confusion there. So I better understand the form at least. Going back to the $429,000 in adjustments versus the 487. because I'm still having a hard time understanding what additional reductions that we made in the second round. Could you give us an example of one or two of those adjustments?
Sure, the adjustments in the second round, one of them was we added back in $3,000 for the employee appreciation event. We removed $2,380 for sprinkler upgrades, we moved a bunch of stuff to fund balance. Relatively small items, repairs to vehicles, $11,500, moved the long-term repairs to fund balance. We had the departments absorb some minor reductions in self-insurance, miscellaneous services. We made an adjustment of $29,000 on our health reimbursement arrangement.
So looking at the 29,000 and the 11,500 and all the other smaller items, that's the roughly $50,000 difference, right?
Correct.
Okay, now I understand that. And the third thing, before we get started, I hope everybody has had a chance to read the Finance Committee recommendation that was in your place setting tonight.
So Ed, do you just want to give us an overview for the public of the Finance Committee recommendations?
Sure. Obviously, they're required by our rules to make a recommendation every year by charter. And they first wanted to remind the council of the previous recommendation regarding the fiscal year 20 LCIP and how it would affect this in future budgets. The fiscal year 20 requests far exceed what we have seen in past years, and the current projected bonding would defeat our paydown mechanism at a time when we are not seeing a strong for-profit business development stream. They reiterated their concern with the current bidding system, as it appears to favor the bidder more than it does the city. Their concern there is that our budget and our numbers are public. So when people are bidding for a particular product or service, they can often refer to our budget to determine how much we've budgeted for that, and that may influence what they actually bid for a particular project. I think that's particularly the case for consulting and professional services, where there's not as much, because of how the process works, as much direct price competition. They're pleased that the Rental Registration Subcommittee has developed a program to help the residents feel safe in their housing with increased code enforcement and fire department involvement. Because the subcommittee rejected a fee-based system, it's important that the city provides some resources to make sure the program is implemented in a timely manner. Public safety remains a top priority. The Finance Committee has 2 city councilors on our committee, Councilor Marcotte and Lyson, who are also both on the Rental Registration Subcommittee. During discussions at their most recent Finance Committee meeting was the stance of members that with respect to new positions in the fiscal year 20 budget, that it made more sense to fund the requested fire inspector position than the assistant fire chief position. Timely inspections will require additional staff, especially boots on the ground. The new fire inspector position will also cost $62,829 less than the assistant fire chief position. So they strongly urge the council to consider that recommendation. There needs to be a very detailed assessment of the current deputy fire chief position before consideration of the new assistant fire chief position. The recent document, that was the memo that the chief provided the council in regard to the justification for the assistant chief, does not provide an adequate picture of workload distribution within the fire department. A number of the listed items are already functional responsibilities of captains, lieutenants, and staff. Clarity of existing positions may be a better direction than adding a position. As an example, a closer look at the records management system, which was purchased a year ago with the intent to reduce management time and training reports, maintenance of work orders, inventory, incident reporting, etc., to date is not up and running. Could the simple implementation of the existing purchased ready RMS be the answer to not adding an additional administrative position? Suggestions to reduce the load, shifting fire inspection duties to an elevated senior fire inspector position would release the current deputy chief's workload at a minimal cost upgrade. There are many alternatives that can be achieved if a team environment exists. We recommend that any future negotiations with the various unions set more realistic targets equal to what private citizens see in their daily lives, finding metrics such as Social Security COLAs and looking to what private employers require their employees to pay as a share of insurance and other benefits seems fair, given the struggle of our local citizens are undertaking as they are forced to contribute to the community treasury. Lastly, our recommendations are developed knowing that the decision by the state on revenue sharing increase may also come after our budget is finalized. We should carefully evaluate any potential additional revenues, dedicating a significant portion of those revenues to reducing the property tax rate. For example, the schools have indicated some uncertainty in portions of their funding, and by rule, any budget they produce cannot be changed later should they need additional funding from the taxpayers. It can be decreased but not increased. Thus, it is likely that we would see a worst-case scenario budget. Should that occur, we strongly urge the City Council and the School Committee understand those portions of the budget. Should the local match end up being less than the average in the budget, the overages should not be spent on other items or needs not included in the original budget, but instead returned directly to the taxpayer by decreasing property taxes. And that's basically it.
So just to clarify on that last point, I mean, that was the direction we got from the superintendent, was that there would be a item written into the warrant
That, well,
saying
basically,
that,
basically what the school department has now proposed is that they would recognize that additional money in their budget, which means they brought the tax rate down by 6 cents.
yep,
And that if they don't get it, they would then have to make cuts, line item cuts in their budget to stay within budget.
but also if they got more,
If they get more than
then
I
it is used to reduce property taxes.
think it would probably be the same language that we've
That
had
it was
before.
last year.
They approved it on Wednesday, yeah,
Okay,
so
great.
that's what will come to us all.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so getting back to Heather's questions, oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
had a question on the, what is this? Finance Committee, sorry. So maybe I'm just forgetting from last year, and I hope the counselors who are on the Finance Committee could illuminate this for me. Do we get an official recommendation? Is that why this isn't ratified yet?
No, correct. It needs to be, correct me if I'm wrong, it needs to be received.
Yeah, it'll be on the council agenda Tuesday to be received from the Finance Committee, to receive the report.
Accept it, yeah, right.
And there is a May 1st deadline, which is why we took actions in the last couple of meetings. We discussed it, gave the chair the opportunity to write it from the points of our discussion. He shared it in emails with the members to make sure that nobody had any concerns. There were some misunderstandings that got corrected today. So I believe that everybody's on board. It would be at our next meeting to either be voted on or ratified. I'm not sure if ratification is the right term, because we missed the May 1st deadline to actually have the official vote. But we did give the chair, as we have in past years, we did this back in 2010, 11, and 12 as well. The chair usually had the responsibility of actually writing the document,
Yeah.
using the previous one as a template. And you'll notice that a lot of the language in here resembles last year's. We just excluded some stuff that was no longer appropriate because it was specific to that particular fiscal year, and added, obviously, we can understand which items were added. Some of the language in here actually reflects some of the input that certain members provided the chair via email.
Okay.
So I think, and I like the format. I wasn't too happy with the format on the LCIP version, but this time around, Alan actually cleaned up the formatting and made it look more like last year's.
Great. So we will receive this in our packet for Tuesday?
Yes.
Even though it won't be ratified until Monday from the committee?
Well, we'll have the vote on Monday, the 6th.
We meet
And
Monday the
and then
6th.
it'll be in the packet. I suspect the chair will come to present it the same way he did on the LCIP.
Great, thank you.
Anything else from the council before we move into Heather's questions? Okay, so your first question was, how many votes does it take to move it forward? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't have any preference on that. Do others? Sure, sure.
If we allow all these positions to go in, it takes 817,511, am I correct? That's what you have on the
Yes.
bottom there?
It would be, and
How
it's-
much?
it corresponds to 41 cents.
41 cents. Okay.
I always look at Heather when I give a
On
number.
top of the 34,
Yes,
Yes,
and the 34 is with the increased 0.5% of revenue sharing.
correct.
correct.
41 cents. Could you translate that for me, please? I'm
If,
sorry.
if all of these positions that are listed here are funded for the full year at a cost of $817,000, that will add 41 cents to the tax rate.
Which means how much money per?
Around $8,000 home, I think that's $41, right?
It would take the tax rate to, assuming revenue sharing, just to keep things simple, to $29.01. So, quick number on,
29.42. You said a 41 cent for all the positions, right?
yes, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong sheet.
And that's including planner and assistant fire chief, or no?
Yes, it would be $29.42, including all of the positions, including the planner and the fire chief.
That would be added to the current tax? That's the increase in
That would be,
tax?
the increase in the tax rate would be 75 cents.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, I still don't understand. 75 cents or 70, how much would it be the increase to the actual bill?
She wants on the on a
$100,000
$100 home, on a $100,000
Yep.
home, how
Heather,
much?
Heather,
much-
you want to run that
$41.
Well, with the homestead,
with the homestead?
I think that's what people want to know. Does anybody else know? No?
with the homestead, it would be $61.80
A per year?
per year.
Thank you.
Counselor Martha?
And my preference in looking at this is the percentage of increase year over year. And seeing where the 70 cents that's on the second line translates to $2.44% without the additional state revenue and 1.2% without. I'm also being cautious that if we don't get the extra revenue sharing, that would take the percentage, well, even if we did get it, I think that's how I was looking at it. I'm confusing myself. Because you said, at first you said 75 cents would be the increase.
You want me to give you the percentages? I've got them here.
You do, because I'm looking at the 2.44, and I was about to say that this would drive that north of 2.44, but that's without the state additional revenue, right?
Yes, without the additional revenue sharing, funding all of these positions for the full year would be a 3.88% increase in the tax rate.
Okay.
With revenue sharing, it would be 2.63%.
And that's where I have my concerns at numbers above 2 and 2.2. So even with the additional state revenue of, what is it, about $725K?
725,000, yes.
If we funded every position, and obviously I don't like, that's not the supermajority vote.
Correct.
But if it were, I'd definitely be opposed based on that construct.
So at the last meeting, at the end of the discussion about how many votes,
Can I just ask a question before we get to that?
yes.
Heather, can you explain this line here?
The shadows,
No,
prior
it
to
says,
the
it says
shadows.
tax rate
We understand
included
the
in
shadows,
cents.
Increase in cents.
In,
so if you funded the library technician
Yeah.
at the 31,129,
Yeah.
that would increase the tax rate by
a penny.
1.57 cents.
Oh,
Okay.
that was.
I was thinking
confusing.
$1.57 and I was like, that
No,
don't
no,
get
no,
right.
no.
Okay.
No.
It's in cents.
In cents.
Okay.
I'm
And
incensed.
yes, everybody's been incensed about this for a long time, yes.
Okay. Sorry.
So
Proceed,
at the,
Ed.
I went back and looked at the tape, and at the end of the discussion about how many votes it was going to take, Counselor Marcotte had suggested 4. Mayor Cloutier had agreed with that, but nobody else had said much. So I think we just need to verify how we're going to do this. How many votes do we need to include a position in the budget?
My vote is for 5.
I mean, 5 will eliminate things quicker, I think. But if we want to go back to what we did originally, we started with 4. We were supposed to be starting with 4, right?
No,
I
5.
don't believe so.
Originally it was 5, but we allowed a 4-1 to get in. So
I thought we allowed a 3-1 to get in. We started with 4.
No, it was
Okay.
4, the ones that had 4
Only one
votes
had
and
4.
above.
Okay, so
Rest had
I'm
5.
comfortable with whatever anybody else is comfortable.
I think it's, regardless if we choose 5 or 4, we have to see what the implication of that
That's
is to the
correct.
tax rate, and before we vote on a final
So
budget.
maybe starting with a lower number and
Sure.
seeing what it looks like
Yeah,
with more things?
absolutely. I
Okay,
think that's
does
the
that
more-
work for folks?
Then we can,
I would prefer
then we can
5.
move back up. But you wanted 4 last week.
Well, last meeting, I was absolutely confused. Well, I was wondering
Let's
which
not
meeting.
talk about last.
Excuse
It's on
me.
tape.
I wasn't sure which tape you're referring to, the last meeting or the one before.
The last meeting.
The last meeting, and I don't recall saying 4, but maybe in the frustration of it all.
Yeah. I mean, what I would suggest, if we do this and we get the count, we can then rank order them and start with the lowest votes and work back up.
Okay, and I also just want to confirm that we're going to give a yay or nay as opposed to just raising hands, right?
Roll call, yea, nay?
I feel like that eliminates any questions.
Yep.
Starting with
So how
1
many
each
do we
time.
need to eliminate?
4 for, each position needs 4 votes to move forward.
And
And
moving,
we
starting
can
with,
vote for all of them, I mean, just to
If you want to,
all or none?
Yep.
we chose not to eliminate any, right?
No, we kept them all in.
Okay. So starting with Ward 1, so it's easy to do?
Sure.
Okay.
And no, I would prefer to start with the largest one.
All right, so you want to go in order of general fund impact?
Yep.
Okay.
That's a little confusing.
I noticed that PWD mechanic -2, and you go further and it says mechanic -1. What's the difference there?
The original new program and service sheet requested 2.
Right.
And when we left here Tuesday night, I was told to bring all positions back. We were starting
Okay.
from
Okay.
scratch.
Yeah,
So only one of
that's-
those.
Okay. What's that mechanic for 1, what is that? Is that the servicer or?
No.
Nope, the vehicle maintenance servicer is essentially the third
Third one
position
down.
down. So the
Okay,
municipal
I see
garage
it.
had 3 positions. They had the equipment servicer and 2 mechanics. So initially, this was kind of in order of what had kind of been eliminated from the eliminated positions, and then the last 2 positions tend to be the ones that were, I guess people were on the fence that we needed to kind of hone in on. So they were in order of what was voted on the last time, from least votes to most votes, with the exception of the last 2 that I just put them on last, because that tended to be the 2 positions that required most of the discussion.
Okay, so as we go down, and let's say we vote for the first mechanic and the -2, and we keep going down and we vote for the next mechanic -1, that's actually 3 mechanics.
No.
So what might be helpful?
If you want to change 1 and 2 to A and B, each one is one position.
Okay,
There were 2 positions, so mechanic 1 and mechanic 2. Mechanic 1 is 1, mechanic 2 is the second one.
Same cost for each individual.
Yes.
But just to be clear, we heard from the Public Works Director, just to rehash that conversation, that of the 3 positions that he wanted, it was 1 mechanic.
Correct. And that's why I put them in the order that I put them in, because essentially the first position down through 24, well, you don't have it on there, but the police patrol officer with the May start, those were initially the ones that had been removed in the first iteration. So I'm thinking those might go, relatively quickly, and then focus on, then the focus would have been on the ones that you had brought either 4 or 5 votes from that point down.
Right.
I wonder if the Public Works Director could refresh my memory as to why we need 2 mechanics and an equipment servicer, what they would be doing, and which ones,
Just very briefly, we looked at garages across the state and across the industry, across the country, and how they fund, and how they staff, and we're about half of what we should be staffed for the amount of equipment, the age of our equipment. And as the mayor said, what I suggested is that we fund a single mechanic this year, give me a year to reassess where we are in the garage, and then I'll come back with something else next year. So
And
that's
what is the equipment servicer?
Equipment servicer, the mechanic's a full mechanic, can do everything. An equipment servicer is somebody who could change oils, change tires, do light duty, so we're not using a full mechanic at a full price to change tires. That was the original thought.
And, I'm sorry, highway worker.
The highway worker was a split position. It worked for both the stormwater utility in the summer, driving the sidewalk vacuum, and in the winter, it would man the spare sidewalk plow. So it would mostly focusing on sidewalks.
And mostly on sidewalks, and we have people who are doing that, it just would help relieve a little bit. Is that
Yes,
why
well,
need
we
a
don't
vehicle?
have somebody, that vehicle usually is set idle. It's the older unit, the sidewalk plow. In the summer, we're actually having temporary help come in and run the vacuum.
You hire temporary.
We hire temporary help, yes.
Oh, and of course, and the sidewalks aren't getting plowed in a timely manner because we don't have that person to plow the sidewalks.
Right, that was the thought, yes, absolutely.
There's an empty
Yep.
sidewalk.
It was to get a little higher level of service, yes.
Okay, thank you.
sorry to hop on it.
Sorry, Councilor Pettingill had a question a while ago that I forgot.
No, that's fine. Councilor Markot's point of starting with the highest number, for ease of everybody involved and to prevent a repeat of last week, where I feel that we're voyaging into that territory. I would say we just start at the top and just work down. It's printed in that order, and just go from there.
I agree.
I'm fine with that. Are you okay
I
with
know, I know why, but just to get going on it.
So we don't lose our place either.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My reason why is simply to be able to gauge the importance that I place on each position and how much of an impact it's going to be on the overall budget. I just did a sequencing of largest to lowest impact in the tax rate in cents, and it does kind of just jump all over the place. If we start at the top, we've been all over the board at the past 2 workshops of which items that we would accept and which we wouldn't. Myself included, there are other members who said yes or no to an item that they were a yes or no to at the previous meeting, the opposite. So I just don't want to be there all over again.
So I just want to address that. So we had two separate straw polls. The first poll was to figure out where and the same thing's going to happen tonight. The first one was to get us to a place so we could figure out what the tax rate was. If that felt too high to people, which it felt to me after the first straw poll, then yes, I voted differently on the second straw poll because I wanted to get that tax rate down. So that same thing is going to happen tonight regardless, I'm guessing.
With regards to the tax rate, it may be inevitable that our tax rate increases. I want to keep that tax rate in check, and I do have priorities as to where they'll be.
Agreed.
And depending on how votes go, will probably dictate whether I support or not support other items, and whether I support the budget item on the agenda next month or not as well.
So,
Regardless of the rate of increase, and whether it's above or below 2.2 on the Coltrap amendment, or above or below 2.2 on the mill rate.
Councilor LaJoy.
I'm going back to the mechanics, Heather. The top one that says mechanic 2, you've got 67,348. Then you get a mechanic 1, which is the same cost, 67,000.
That's because the department requested two of the same position, so that amount would be the same for both of those positions.
It might be simpler if you wanted to change Mechanic 2 to Mechanic B and Mechanic 1 to Mechanic A. It's two positions,
All right.
it's not three. So it's not, when it says Mechanic 2, that doesn't mean it's two positions, it's just
All
a
right.
single position.
It's
I
the
think it
second
just-
mechanic, think of it that way.
Yeah, I was just getting confused on the 1 and the 2, instead of just having mechanic, 2 mechanics.
It could also say first mechanic, second mechanic, if that
Or
helps
A
in
and
the thinking.
Okay.
Because I wondered the same thing initially, whether the 2 meant that there were 2 and there'd be 3 in total. But then I saw the impact, and it was just 1 of 2 and 2 of 2.
Right,
Correct.
okay.
Or A and B.
So, the way that I envision this going is that there are going to be positions that end up on the list that we come up with right now, that are going to be positions that some of us aren't going to want to fund, and some of us are going to want to fund. And I think that we whittle down this list, we get to whatever that list of 4 or more is, and then we have a discussion of those positions that are on that 4 or more list. Is that the way other people are?
And it may take another vote. That's
Yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
At that point, we will look at what the tax rate is. We will talk about those positions that people either want to include or don't want to include, and then figure it out. Okay.
So are we starting from the top?
I think so, yes.
And you want a yea or nay vote
Yes, please.
on roll call.
Sorry,
Counselor Beam?
just one more question, and since the police chief is here, could you just refresh my memory, please? Yes. What these different position people will be doing, like the patrol officer may start. What is that position for?
What would they be doing?
Yeah. Just a patrol officer in the city?
Yes,
Okay.
that's,
And the fourth school resource officer?
that would go to Connors Elementary School.
Okay, and they don't have one now?
There's no-
There's nobody transferring from another school?
No,
or-
we don't have someone.
Okay. And, sorry, the patrol officer, December starts the same thing as another
They
patrol officer?
would be a patrol
for the-
officer,
The
right.
patrol, city of Lewiston. And, okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Counselor Marcotte?
Sorry.
Coming back to the highway worker, and as an example, because I think that I'm going to get the same answer as the senior accountant, the dollar amount that's in the description versus the annual impact means that a portion of those salaries are allocated out to the enterprise funds?
That's correct.
Okay. And even though the enterprise funds are not impacting our mill rate, our tax rate, they do have an impact on the users, which are the same people paying taxes, sometimes expanded to people who don't pay direct real estate taxes. Just to make that clear to everyone.
Counselor Beam?
Is the recreation director here?
Dale?
Wonder, Dale, good. There's a recreation programmer position and a program aide position for the recreation department. Is there a recreation programmer there now? Or are we having a second one? So this is a second
Yes, there's one
programmer?
now. One of those two, I believe, Heather, is part-time today.
The
I didn't bring my book.
progressive.
So it's
Yep.
taking a part-time one, making it full-time. Then there was a second aide. Fortunately, my book's in the back of the room.
Okay, so the recreation programmer is part-time?
There is
Now?
currently a part-time one, yes, that would make it
And we're
full-time.
hiring a part-time person at 72,000?
No, there is a part-time person that would become full-time. Heather has the book, I just want to make sure.
But if we're just hiring,
So if you look at the program aid for 17,958,
yes,
that's the amount of money that it takes to have that position go from part-time to full-time. It's an incremental increase.
the program aide will become full-time
Will become full-time,
for $17,000.
right.
Okay.
The recreation programmer, the second one from the top,
Yes,
that's a brand-new position.
but we already have a programmer.
We have an assistant recreation director that does programming.
Function, yes.
This is a second recreation programmer that will be focusing on a lot of the, let me grab the detail here.
Counselor Marcotte?
Piggybacking this item, could we just simply get an explanation as to what these two positions do, job duties?
They primarily assist in signing up people and setting the programs on the, on some of the sides. So they're arranging for the different programs that are going on, like pickleball or any of those, and then they administer those, oversee them.
The difference between recreation programmer and program aide?
I think just level of responsibility. Programmer is solely by themselves, and aide is assisting.
But we have one programmer there now. No, it's an assistant.
Part-time.
We have an assistant, there's essentially 3 full-time staff at recreation. There's a recreation director, the assistant recreation director who does programming, and then there's the administrative assistant. The current program aide is a temporary, part-time position that's funded with activity funds and senior citizen funds that would become full-time.
So that program
So we're
aide,
essentially funding half a position.
right, it's a full-time position, but it would be full-time if we approved it.
All right, are we ready? Please call the roll.
Okay,
You prefer nay or yes or no? Nay and yay?
yes and no.
Listen, no. Thank you. You said nay and yay, so.
And again, just to be clear, this is to get us to the first round to figure out where we are.
Correct.
So that doesn't mean that the next round, you wouldn't vote differently
Correct.
for the things that are in again, okay. But, yes,
You don't have to.
Just to be
Right.
clear.
So the library technician,
No.
No.
No?
no,
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 No.
okay,
7 no.
7 no. The recreation programmer,
No.
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 no,
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 No.
7 no. The equipment servicer,
No.
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 no,
no,
yes,
Yes.
2 yeses. The second mechanic of 2,
No.
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 Yes.
Yes.
The recreation program aid.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
So what was that one?
That had 2 yeses, 5 nos.
Okay.
The highway worker.
No.
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 I'm sorry. No.
Yes.
Can you say what the vote was? Sorry.
Yes,
One
that
yes.
1 yes, 6 nos.
Yep.
The patrol officer, that would start in May, based upon the academy.
No.
No.
Yes.
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 5 yeses, 2 nos. The 4th school resource officer.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
6 yeses,
6
1 no.
yeses.
The first mechanic of the 2 mechanics.
Second one that we're voting on. Okay.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 6 yeses, 1 no. The senior accountant.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 6 yeses, 1 no. The fire inspector.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 6 yeses, 1 no. The city clerk's position.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 6 yeses, 1 no. The patrol officer, that would start at the December academy.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
5 yeses, 2 nos. The city planner.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 6 yeses, 1 no. The assistant or deputy fire chief, the titles have been used interchangeably.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
3 yeses, 4 nos. So looking down through there, I gotta get my granny glasses on. We have the school resource officer, the mechanic, the senior accountant, the fire inspector, the city clerks, the patrol officer,
Both patrol officers.
Both patrol officers.
yes, patrol officer, and then the planner that are moving forward. Six, 7, 8 positions? Okay.
So now, can you give us a?
Yep.
Thank you. I didn't want to ask. I was hoping you would read my mind.
Can we take a break, you know?
Easy.
I think I'm on Jeopardy. So with those 8 positions, just making sure my math's looking correct here. Assuming no revenue sharing, the tax rate goes from the 29.37 that you saw prior to the positions to $29.59, which is a 92-cent increase, or 3.19%. Assuming we get full revenue sharing, it goes from $16.77 to $16.99.
Sorry,
Wait, I've got the wrong.
you're throwing me off with the 16s.
Yes, that's the city side. Hang on, there we go. It goes from $29.01 to $29.23, and there's some rounding there, or about a 56-cent increase, or 1.94%.
And again, as a reminder, that assumes full year funding.
Yes. So that's the worst-case scenario on some
That's
of these.
correct.
Council Marcotte?
And based on those numbers, and assuming that we got the 725 from the state, I am satisfied with the 1.94% increase. Obviously, I would not be satisfied with 3.19, so I would want some mechanisms in place in case we do not get the additional state funding.
Do you have recommendations for those?
If,
Not,
Okay.
not out of the gate.
Okay.
no.
if we want to go back and revisit start dates, that would certainly bring this down further. So,
Is that an easy
least for this year.
calculation to do on the fly?
so, did you bring that with you, Heather?
Yes, I did.
The only thing we didn't have, we had originally talked about I think a start date for code planning of October. Is that date okay?
Does that work for the Director of Planning?
Yeah,
Well, the
yes.
director of planning will probably take anything you give him.
I mean, he's getting a
Yeah,
shower
he's a
on the
happy
third
camp.
floor.
Yeah, October's
heard you.
fine.
Okay.
And how about the fire inspector? Did we talk about that as
I'll run through the dates so you
Okay.
all know.
on the 8th?
The school resource officer is a full year. The,
So that would start in the new school, the new academic year, right? So September, August?
it's a full year funding.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So it would start July 1st.
That would be contingent upon me hiring somebody
Right.
to fill
Right,
that position,
right,
so.
right. Okay.
So Ed, there's one above there. There's the first patrol officer that has a
Says-
May 1st start
yeah.
date. Then there's the full year for the school resource officer.
Yeah.
The mechanic, we looked at having a 1/1 start date.
Correct.
And then the senior accountant, we looked at a 1/1 start date.
Yep.
Just so we're all on the same page, the fiscal year starts July 1, correct?
Correct. So we would
That's
defer
6
it.
months.
We would defer it for 6 months. The fire inspector, we were looking at an October 1st start date. The city clerk's position would be a July 1st start date. The second patrol officer obviously has a December 1st start date. And then the planning position, we looked at a January 1st start date, based
And I
upon
think
what you
we're, I
just
think
said.
they've decided to make that October.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it seems to me with all those adjustments that we would, like you said, be in a
You're
better,
going to be somewhere in the range, and Heather can help me out here, because I just have some numbers I ran from the prior list. You're going to be somewhere in the range of about a 13-cent increase.
And we're currently at 22, right?
Yeah, and we're currently at 22.
And that's the full impact of the following year's budget,
Correct.
unless things happen and there's layoffs necessary.
Correct.
so how are others feeling about the increase?
I was fine with the less than 2%
Okay.
at full year, and I think the reductions add some breathing room in this first fiscal year. And I'm in support.
Okay, so I think that probably Heather and Ed, did you have a?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if we were to strip 9 cents from the number that does not include the extra state funding, what percentage would we be at? Is it, Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Is it all or nothing on the additional state funding, or could it be like a portion of that 725?
I feel pretty confident that we will get the 2.5%, which is what's in the governor's budget. I do not think we will get less than that. I think there's a possibility we could get more.
And 2.5
Yes.
means the 725,000?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
But I was just wondering if maybe there'd be some compromise and it was like 2.4, 2.3?
I don't think
So
that
it's-
will happen.
So it's either 2 or 2.5, and you feel that it will be the 2.5?
The pushes are either to keep it at the 2 point, everybody, I would say that nearly everybody at the State House recognizes the importance of revenue sharing and the cuts that it's had on municipalities. I would say that, just from my own committee, the push has either been to keep it at the 2.5% and support the governor's budget, or to increase it back to the full 5%. So the likelihood, I think, of it going below the 2.5 that's been recommended is not high.
But I think the request I made was, if we didn't get any of the funding, if it went back to the 2.0, what would that make that 3.19 rate?
I'm sorry. So going back with all of your massaging of the start dates with all 8 positions, assuming no additional revenue sharing, it goes from $29.37 to $29.50, which is an 83-cent increase, or 2.9%.
2.9.
Assuming full revenue sharing, it goes from $29.01 to $29.14-ish, or a 47-cent increase, or a 1.65%.
Now, Counselor Marcotte, are you into a proviso like the school committee is doing? If in fact that money doesn't arrive, what we'll have to do is eliminate some of the positions. Now, and we'll know that when is the governor's budget's adopted, is in July.
I mean, the last day we're there is supposedly June 19th.
Yeah. So we should know that well before the fiscal year begins.
That's correct, and I will point out that the way the budgeting process is set up in our charter, once you've adopted a budget, you cannot increase the tax commitment, the tax levy, but you can decrease it. So if we set up the budget, the way I would think of setting up the budget is that we would adopt a budget with the numbers showing no revenue sharing, language in the budget resolve indicating that if revenue sharing was received, it would go against the tax levy and reduce the tax rate. If it wasn't received, you would still have the option to come back and revisit the budget if you wanted to make some other adjustments. So you can come down, you can't go up.
Counselor Marcotte, how do you feel about that?
I'd just rather have a provision to bring it back down to a 2% increase should we not get the additional state funding. If we got the state funding, I'm happy right where we're at.
If we were going to do that, it would certainly be my preference that you folks would specify how
Exactly.
we're going to get there.
So,
Can we get a dollar amount that would?
that's what I was just going to say.
Counselor Marcotte, if we don't get the additional state aid, you said you wanted to get down to 2%?
Yeah, So the difference
Okay,
between...
even if we don't even add any positions, we're at a 2.44% increase without state aid,
Really?
really.
So that was a good request.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We'd have to remove all of them.
Yep.
Wow. And there's only three that I would not want to give up. Obviously, from my statements and my vote at the first workshop, the three positions I would not give up would be the senior accountant, the fire inspector, and the city clerk's position, because they're all related to the rental registration program. I mean, maybe if we didn't get the state funding, and the probability is low, I'd be satisfied with wherever that takes the mill rate, by keeping those positions and eliminating the remaining.
I think that gets into a kind of a mix that we all would prefer.
So
different
I
things.
think maybe what makes sense now is for us to vote on whether or not we would approve the budget as is. Knowing that we can come back when you bring it before us and change our votes at that time. But I think that gives you and Heather a sense of where we are and whether or not we need to work on it. Counselor Mark?
When do we do tax commitment? What's the date on it?
Usually it's not till August.
It's not till August?
Mhm.
Wow. And the bills go out in August?
Yes,
Yes.
just the commitment's usually done right before the bills get sent out. That allows assessing time to
Having
clean
said
up the
that,
records.
we need to pretty much wrap it up by the end of July
Yeah.
to get everything programmed, and, because don't forget, we're using two different systems. And then we need at least 2 weeks for our tax bill provider, and then we need to check numbers in between there.
But there's no way the legislature would stay in session beyond June 30, right?
No.
Ed says no.
If they don't have a budget by June
I
30th,
mean,
the
July
state,
4th, we didn't have a budget last year.
yeah, the state shuts down.
Right,
And last year was a second year, what they call supplemental or whatever?
yeah. But it would result in a state shutdown, and nobody wants that.
Right. I think it would be highly unlikely that they would not have a budget by the end of June.
So I'm willing to sit tight until we learn about the additional funding.
But don't we have to vote by a certain date?
When you say sit tight, you
We
mean
have
go
to
with
adopt,
this?
we have to adopt a budget by charter by May 30th.
And we would be adopting a budget with the presumption that we're getting the additional funding?
Oh, I think
We
some
would
of
be
us,
adopting a budget which would specify that we were accepting all of the reductions that we've proposed, funding all of the new positions that the council has agreed to fund for the time period they've agreed to fund it, with a proviso that any additional revenue sharing to be received would be used to reduce the tax rate.
But if that doesn't occur, that
If that
additional
then
funding...
we're agreeing to the budget
That's correct.
with all of these things in it.
Or you could come back and have further discussions and try to find reductions.
Because there's no way that I'd be supporting something above 2.2%.
And we're saying, if we assume we're not getting the revenue sharing increase, and we don't fund any of the positions, it's still a 2.44%.
Correct.
Correct.
So I think we should do the yay or nay, and folks should be thinking about whether they're comfortable with the 2.9% increase at the end of the day if we don't get revenue sharing, knowing that there's a good possibility that we will,
And again, with the
but being comfortable with the 2.9.
With the distribution, though, if we get revenue sharing and the start dates are reflected, that's a 1.65% increase.
That's correct.
Yes. Counselor Ray?
And to clarify, next Tuesday, we will vote on sending the school budget to referendum, and if that is approved by voters, that can't be moved after that date, right?
Correct.
The May 14th vote. So any reduction would have to come from the city side
Yes.
at that point.
Are you all set?
Yeah,
Counselor Mark?
I think that's a reaction, so.
Yeah, well, there was one thing and then something towards the end. First item is, I thought the vote was already set, and it was for May 7th. It's not set. The what is it, school budget validation vote
The referendum is the
Referendum is
14th.
is the 14th.
But we have to send it to,
Yeah, the council has to
We have to
approve it
approve it
first.
at our
On the
next
7th.
meeting, yeah.
Maybe that's where I got confused, and I thought it was going to the ballot on the 7th. Okay,
no,
so
on the 14th.
on the 14th. And what was that second part? If?
So if on the 14th it's approved by voters, then that is the tax rate for the schools.
For the school.
So we're in the same position that we're in with the county now, can't change it. So the only thing that could move would be the city budget
Yeah.
at that point. And so we'd have
Yeah.
to get our scissors out and cut it up.
Other questions, comments? Counselor Marquardt?
So if we approve this at this time,
Well, we're not approving it, we're just giving a guidance. Yeah.
guidance at this time, and when it comes to, it's on our agenda and we approve it, we would have an opportunity at that time to revisit before commitment?
If the council wished, yes. It would obviously take agreement of the majority of the council to reopen the budget.
I'm sorry, can you clarify that in terms of dates? So,
If we adopt the budget on the 7th,
yep,
and the state adopts its budget prior to July 1st,
Yeah.
which we anticipate, and does not include the additional revenue sharing, you would have the month of August in which to, preferably the first half of the month of August, in which to reconvene to consider any additional reductions you might wish to include in an amendment to the budget.
well, we'd have July and August, correct?
You'd have July and August,
Okay.
yes, excuse me. I get dates confused.
Mr. City Administrator,
Yes,
if we're on summer schedule for July and August,
we have a meeting each month.
and typically the meeting in August is towards the middle of the month, that is too late to readjust for the tax bills.
Well, let's leave that open, that first meeting in August open, then.
No, it needs to
You-
be
you
the
would wanna
July
do it
meeting,
in
because she said the
July.
August
July.
meeting's too late.
July.
The currently suggested dates are July 16th and August 13th. Is August 13th too late? I don't know that we've all agreed to this. I'm looking at Kathy.
That only
I know I
gives
haven't
us
agreed to it.
30 days to get, till the tax bill's
You're
due date.
uncomfortable with that, is what I'm hearing.
Because we typically have them mailed by that date, if
Okay.
not earlier,
But
to
I
give our
think we could do
taxpayers.
that at the July meeting, right?
What is it, the 16th is the proposal?
That's the proposal. I can't make it, so sorry.
I really don't think we're gonna get to that point, but
It's an option.
And we can call a special meeting at any time, too, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct. Either the mayor can call it or a majority of the council.
all right, so we wanna give a yay or nay on what we have in front of us?
So if I understand the yea or nays, you are looking at tentatively approving the tax rate, assuming no additional state revenue sharing of $29.50, or a 2.9% increase, or an 83-cent increase. With additional revenue sharing, it would be $29.14, or a 47-cent increase, or 1.65. Recognizing, once I push this all together with the county and the school, there may be a penny here or there and a percent here or there with rounding.
Not a full percent, maybe a tenth of a percent.
Probably not even a tenth.
Yes, but I just need to
Yes, I understand.
leave that caveat open. So,
Okay, good. All right,
So,
So-
start? Yeah, yes.
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 7-0.
Since we have had a great deal of discussion about the
We did it!
assistant fire chief position, and there's been a suggestion that we take a look at having a study done, I would certainly support that, and I would suggest that we maybe look forward to, or at least consider funding that. We could probably fund it from fund balance, not the operating budget, and have it do a complete analysis of the fire department, the staffing responsibilities, the procedures, the training across the board. Bangor did one of those 10 years ago for about $35,000. Portland did one 5 years ago for about $39,000. So I would anticipate that we'd probably be looking at something in the 45, maybe at worst case, $50,000 range.
So, sorry.
I was just gonna, that's from the bottom up, correct?
Yes, I think it would make sense for us to take a look at the whole operation.
The whole operation, okay.
Heather, when we talk about fund balance, I know there was concern about where we were, but I know you got us to a place we were comfortable at, so I'm just wondering how this,
Yeah, we were at
Affect that.
10.04% the last time. I am comfortable
Okay.
for funding this, yes.
okay, so I would be in support of that. Counselor Marcotte?
Excuse me, do you know what that .04 translates to in dollars?
That's what I was just gonna grab.
And I also wanted to clarify in my mind, so this would be a study of only the fire department, but from the ground up.
Yes,
And I would want to make sure that it was an outside firm, not something done internally.
yes, it would be an outside firm, professional folks who are knowledgeable about the fire profession.
Counselor Ray?
Is there any other like reference point for this for either fire or another department throughout the history of time? This is just a really new concept for me.
You mean departmental reviews?
It's,
Yeah, I feel like I haven't
It's pretty common, I think.
in here.
pardon me?
No, keep going.
The fire service is a little bit unique in individual circumstances, depending upon the history of the department, the range of services that it provides, its staffing patterns, its union contract, all of those things have an impact on how the department operates. It's not unusual for departments to go through this kind of an analysis. As I mentioned, Bangor did and Portland did within the last decade. I believe that the state fire chiefs will also do an analysis, but I think we would be better served having a truly independent group of
Yes.
professionals taking a look at the department and giving us their recommendations and advice on how to proceed in the future.
Okay. So has Lewiston ever done one, I guess was my question. Has Lewiston done this before for the fire department?
Not as far as I'm aware.
But has it done it for other departments?
It has been done in other departments, yes.
Counselor Lyson and then Counselor LaJoy?
Yes. I'm just wondering how, if at all, this would affect moving forward on the new stations and stuff like that.
Wouldn't have, the one thing I would probably say we don't probably need to have a study done of is stations.
You're right.
I think
But
that's
it
been-
won't impact it. It
No.
won't slow that down
No.
or put us in a
No,
less safe situation at all.
yeah, no, I don't think, I think that's the one area that we've already studied in depth, both in terms of response times and station needs.
Counselor LaJoy?
I think in the future, depending on how this goes and if it's voted through, that we should also look at the other departments such as the police and public works, just to put us in a better position when we start talking. And then we can verify that studies have been made and it's proven that we can have to be in those positions.
Public safety departments. Counselor Marcotte?
I think Heather has a number.
No, I didn't bring that down. I will email that out.
Okay. Because I know we went from 9.93, right,
Right, to
to 10.04.
10.04.
And we don't know how much dollars that is equates to.
I will email it out. I don't want to misstate it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay?
Good. So you'll bring that to, you're going to email it to us?
Correct.
Do you want us to have this conversation and give you some guidance once we have that number again, the meeting on May 7th?
Yes, we should have that ready for the 7th.
Okay. Counselor Marcotte?
So we'll be voting on that measure next week,
Yes.
monthly study?
Yeah.
Are we going to
Fun-
vote on
well-
it, or
You would be voting on funding, yes.
On funding it, a resolution to do it, maybe that's not necessary.
The fact that it would be a line item on the appropriation from fund balance would take care of it.
Okay. 'Cause I
Yeah,
was
so it'll
wondering
show
what-
up on the fund balance list when we approve the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
'cause I was wondering what you meant by guidance, if we were gonna have like a straw poll on that.
Oh, no, I was just thinking it would come back before us with the dollar amount. All right, so we're good? Counselor Pettingill?
Just for future reference, this worksheet,
Yeah.
I think would be very helpful if we could include it with future budget presentations. Seeing as how it took us 3 meetings to get here, this may help clarify a lot going forward.
In other words, good job, keep it going.
And I'll be sitting over here more, because I spun out.
No, I think part of the issue here is that we made adjustments to the budget, and then at the end, we decided on positions. So this will be, may be different next year, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
The issues
but
may not be positions, it may be,
There will always be contentious items, because we do keep the list.
Yeah,
So being able to look at this,
It's a
That way,
worksheet,
I think
that allows
is-
you,
yeah.
and the biggest thing is the tax rate, and, included on here,
Yeah.
I think will help folks get to that place a lot quicker.
agreed. All right. Nice job.
Thank you.